Most people learn Mandarin in the exact wrong order. They memorize thousands and thousands of words before they can even make a sentence. They drill flashcards for 2 years straight and can't have a conversation. There's an order that I've found that I think works. And I've broken this down into 4 stages that are simple and easy to follow. Stick around, because stage 2 is actually the stage where most people get stuck without even realizing it. And I'll show you exactly how to avoid doing that. Let's start with building a foundation, as this is an important stage that many people just skip through and rush through and then regret it later. Stage 1 is deceptively simple. I burned through my first 100 words of Mandarin in like a week and then had to spend months relearning tones, so don't be like me. At this stage, there are 3 things I think you should do. First of all is to learn your first 100 words so that you have a base vocabulary to work on for the stages that will come later. Secondly, get comfortable with pinyin and actually learn the proper mouth and tongue positions for each sound in pinyin, especially the ones that don't exist in English. There's loads of great YouTube videos for this. And the final part is to nail tones. So you want to spend a lot of time at this stage building a foundation of pronunciation that you'll build on later. So the mistake everyone makes here is they treat it as a race and try and get through this stage as quickly as possible. But you don't want to do that, as you don't really want to kind of be stuck with tones that native speakers quietly can't understand for, the rest of the time that you learn Mandarin. And get these things right now so that you don't have to go and fix them, as I've seen many people do years later. Now, once you're solid on the meaning and the pronunciation of these first 100 words, which you can probably get from your HSK1 vocab list, for example, then what you need to do next is move on to the stage that really feels like you're actually learning Mandarin. This is it. This is the stage where I think most people give up. And the reason they do that is because they use the methods that they used in stage 1 in stage 2. That is, they carry on trying to learn Mandarin word by word out of context. But real Mandarin isn't built word by native speakers, and it certainly isn't built out of context. Instead, I think it's built from chunks. Think of these as short phrases and reusable sentence patterns that you can slot things in and out of in order to express thousands of ideas. Native speakers, and also non-native fluent Mandarin speakers, have internalized these patterns of the language so deeply that they're just able to use them automatically without thinking. So at this stage, you want to start moving in that direction. First, you want to move to a chunk-based tool and learning in chunks. Now, I specifically built the Chunking Chinese Fluency Trainer for this purpose, so it's very good at doing this. You can also use Anki, as I did, if you set it up right in order to do this. At this stage, you can also get some more structure as well. So I really like Li Cha Lao Shi, his live streams, they're very good. Alternatively, if you like textbooks, you can certainly follow a textbook along for a little bit. However, I personally didn't do that, and a lot of the learners I've interviewed on here didn't. It's completely up to you, but having a little bit of structure will probably help. And next, you want to get a lot of beginner level input. Now, literally just go on YouTube and search comprehensible input beginner Mandarin, and you'll get a load of videos at a really basic level that you can follow along with. But I don't want you to just watch. What you've got to do now is start adding new sentences into Anki, the Fluency Trainer, or whatever spaced repetition system that you're using, so that you actually start to learn new sentences and start to carry on internalizing new patterns. And here's what you need to do. You need to do this consistently and add it in terms of adding the new sentences, and also review daily. I can tell you for certain, with this kind of thing, expanding your vocabulary, expanding your knowledge of chunks, a little bit each day is going to be a lot better than a huge marathon at the weekend and then having a week off, and another huge marathon that little and often is always going to be like high intensity. That's not really very sustainable. The final thing at this stage is to shadow constantly. Do lots of sentence by sentence imitation of native speakers. In stage 1, we worked on individual words and being able to pronounce them properly and understanding the pinyin and the tongue positions. Now you need to up that a bit and build on your foundation by imitating whole sentences so that you can get the rhythm right and you can learn to pronounce these individual words and these chunks at speed in the context of an entire sentence as they would normally be said. This is still building on our pronunciation foundation, just at a higher level. Now, I would say for a lot of people, stage 2 is probably the longest stage, and sometimes it can feel like the one with the least visible progress day to day. And that's exactly why a lot of people quit here, because they don't have this tangible feeling of making lots of progress or seeing themselves suddenly speaking Mandarin fluently. But I want to encourage you here, at this stage, your brain is slowly rewiring itself to go from a non-speaker of Mandarin to laying the foundations to be a confident speaker of Mandarin later on. So you've just got to stick it out. Once you've hit roughly HSK 2 or ideally maybe HSK 3 in terms of speaking and your listening ability, then you're ready to move on to the next stage. And it's time to do the thing that scares almost every Mandarin learner. Start having real conversations, and ideally weekly minimum. Honestly, you can even start doing this back in stage 2 if you're exceptionally thick-skinned like I was. And if you feel comfortable doing so and you're able to accept that bit of discomfort of not really being able to express yourself very well yet. There's no hard and fast rule here as to exactly when you should start speaking. It's more of a case of when you have enough things to talk about and when it's practical to do so. But I'm going to put a caveat here that actually you will never feel ready. So you've got to get over that feeling at the same time. At the same time, you want to keep watching beginner and intermediate Mandarin videos to expose yourself to the language as much as you can, and also try and add podcasts at this stage as well, I would say, because if you're just watching videos, you can sometimes become a little bit over-reliant on subtitles. So to really hone your listening skills, I would recommend getting podcasts in there too. And as well as this, keep up your daily sentence work with Anki, or whatever spaced repetition system you're using, so that you're continuing to expand your vocabulary, expand your active range of things that you can say in the language, as this will really, really help you with conversations. As I said earlier, here's the uncomfortable truth. You'll never feel ready for this stage, but at some point you've just got to take the leap. I think the learners who make a real breakthrough in Mandarin, they start doing this before they feel ready, because they've accepted the fact that they never will feel ready. You know, most of the learners that I've interviewed on this channel that have done a really good job of learning Mandarin, for example, Simon, Clements, they started having conversations way before they felt ready. And the reason I think this works is conversation isn't just a skill that you practice for. Instead, it's actually a tool of learning the language. It's actually a really good learning method in itself. Why? Because real-time communication forces you to find your gaps and then go away and fill them. And also you can get corrected in real time, so you can start realizing where you're expressing something not quite right. And then you can go and put that back into your spaced repetition system so that you can keep reviewing it and never make the same mistake twice. Stage 4. This is the stage that everyone's chasing. Once you've hit a solid HSK 4 or maybe even potentially HSK 5 and above in terms of speaking and listening skills in Mandarin, I would highly recommend making the shift to native content. And again, this is for some people just as scary as speaking practice. So you want to keep up your daily practice with the Fluency Trainer or Anki to make sure that you're constantly reinforcing new things that you're learning. You're regularly reviewing things that you previously learned so you don't forget them. Don't kind of take your foot off the pedal at this point, as it were. This is the point where a lot of people kind of abandon this kind of practice because they think they're at a level where they can just kind of get away with just watching native content and that's it, and that's all they do. But I would even go as far to say I still practice. I mean, I did, part of my PhD in Mandarin, and I still practice daily doing these, reps, because Mandarin is 学无止境. The learning never ends. It's a lifelong journey. So treat it that way, and I stay humble, and I think you'll go so much further, so much faster. At this stage, I would also recommend to try and push conversations like 2-3 times a week, or as much as you can, possibly do, just to get really, really good at having conversations in Mandarin. And if you don't have a tutor available, I'd definitely recommend making use of AI in order to get speaking practice instantaneously whenever you want it. I think it can really help fill that gap in our day and age. And now you've got to replace learner content with native content. Now you can kind of do this gradually over time as opposed to all at once. So I remember when I was doing this, I started watching TV shows that were designed for native speakers, but at the same time I kept listening to podcasts that were designed for learners, and then eventually I switched all my podcasts over to podcasts for native speakers. So you can do the same sort of thing and keep feeding new sentences, new ways of expressing things into your daily sentence practice, so that you keep learning new ways of expressing things and you start picking up the nuance between different ways of expressing the same sort of idea. So here's the part that no one tells you. Stage 4 doesn't feel particularly dangerous like, stage 2, stage 3, but there's no pressure to grow anymore because you're at the point where you can start understanding native content. So it's very easy to quietly stop improving at this point because you're not pushing for it anymore. So make sure you do keep pushing forward and actively learning as much as you can. But at the same time, you've also got to enjoy this stage, because this is the stage where Mandarin can start to become part of your life as opposed to something that you just study. So 4 stages. Stage 1, foundation. Learn your first 100 words, nail tones and pinyin. Stage 2, chunks. Start learning how the language fits together in the context of whole chunks and whole sentences, so that you can start internalizing the patterns of the language, so you can swap things in and out really easily to express thousands of ideas. Make sure you're using an SRS system to make sure you're reviewing everything at the right time and really remembering what you're actually learning. Lots of input, lots of shadowing practice to build on the pronunciation base that we built in stage 1. Stage 3, start having conversations before you're ready for them, because you're never going to feel ready. And then stage number 4, native immersion. Start making the shift towards native content so you learn to cope with native speed. Try and have more conversations than you previously were, ideally at least 2 or 3 a week, and use AI if you struggle to kind of find a way of filling that gap. And don't stop with your personal daily practice, so that you can keep pushing on forward with your Mandarin learning. Now, I talked a lot about using Anki in this video. If you're interested in how to use Anki to learn Mandarin really efficiently, then I'd highly recommend you check out this video next, where I break it down a bit more.